Senator Plale. Wisconsin is known to have a reputation for excessive alcohol consumption, yet a very lenient punishment for DUI. How does the Wisconsin Tavern League affect this?
Well, the Wisconsin Tavern League was very disappointed this past session because for the first time since I've been in the legislature, we've actually made some great strides in cracking down on drunk driving. And I see in the back of the room my good friend Josh Zepnick. He's a state representative who really led the charge on that issue. And I was proud to work with Josh on this issue. I don't want to tell stories out of school, but Josh lost a loved one to drunk driving. This is something that he has a strong passion for. And when the Tavern League pushed back, it was really folks like Josh and Senator Jim Sullivan and me and others who pushed them back and said it's about time that we actually make some strides here. And we did. We made some tremendous strides. Now, anytime you make any type of major change in legislation, there will always be people who will say it's gone too far and folks who say it hasn't gone far enough. But for the years that I've been in the legislature, we have really done a great job of cracking down on drunk driving. And I think it was really that case out in Commonwealth that brought a lot of that to our attention. And are there more things that we can do? Are there things that we can go further? Yeah, of course there are. And that's why they call it a legislative process. It's not like it stops at the end of the session and then you can never discuss it again. I think that the advocates for cracking down on drunk driving were very effective this session. And I think we took a broad leap, and I think we have further to go, particularly in the area of rehabilitation. There's really three areas when it comes to drunk driving. There's rehabilitation, there's prevention, and there's punitive. And so often we focus so much on the punitive that we forget those other two areas. And really the best thing that the legislature can do, that laws can do, is to get people from having to make the choice in the beginning. And that's something that doesn't make for splashy headlines, it doesn't make for great press releases, but it truly has a meaningful impact on the area of drug driving.
Thank you. Supervisor Larson.
Yeah, I think we have a culture of drinking in Wisconsin, and that's definitely true. And it can be a problem, and it's led to tragedy. 10 years ago, when I was in high school, I was taught the vulnerability of being a teenager when my friend died and was killed 2 days before Christmas. She was my partner in tennis, and that was very stark. And I remember going through that Christmas talking to a lot of my relatives. My family has a history of suffering with alcoholism. And talking to them and saying, don't drink and drive. And they were like, well, we do this every year. This is how it goes. And realizing that this is a culture that needs to change. And unfortunately, when you have the Tavern League pushing against this, it's a tragedy when we have some of the weakest drunk driving laws in the country. And that needs to change. You need to take strong stances to change this around. I think we can't have incremental changes on this when we still have a first offense is simply a moving violation. It's a joke. We need to turn this around. And on the rehabilitation side, I have restored AOTA funding frequently in the budget, alcohol and other drug addiction. So that's key. But you do need to penalize those who put people's lives at risk.
Thank you. Supervisor Larson. An MPS teacher who lives in Bayview writes, I am very concerned about the future of our educational system in Milwaukee. As a state senator, what will you do to help support and improve MPS?
Well, that's a $1 million question. I know that the state of MPS is a frequent question from teachers and from parents who have students with MPS. And I think that the first thing, it's a ball of knots, and I like to refer to it as being the 20 battle war, where if you start on one, you usually get interrupted by the person, well, what about this, or what about that? And I think that what needs to happen, first and foremost, and is controllable by the state level, is that we have an equitable funding formula for Milwaukee. And right now, it's slanted in such a way where we lose over $50 million to the rest of the state because the formula is flawed. In order to fix that, the legislators have to lock arms and say, look, we're not going to continue this funding formula until Milwaukee gets its fair share. That's a good start when we get the money that we're already paying into it going to our schools. I think beyond that, we need to work on reform, and how to do that is you need all the stakeholders at the table. One thing that can be done is moving up our elections for school board to fall. I remember in the midst of all of this discussion about MPS reform and how we need to have, we need to change things over, and there's so many problems there. There were school board elections, and the turnout for those elections were something like 8%. 8%. So people can point at the school board and say that they're the problem, that's where the problem is. And there is some problems there. But when people have tuned out completely, that's an even bigger problem. So I think shifting those elections to fall, where everyone right now is on the debate of what's going on in politics, is going to be a lot bigger in increasing those turnouts and getting people to pay attention to what's going on in their student's school and participating and getting representatives who are going to act accordingly to what they believe in and be more reactive to them.
Thank you. Senator Plale?
Well, it's more than $1 million question. It's more like a $50 million question, and that's something that I've been working on for years to fix that funding flaw, because when the choice program was set up back in the mid-90s, the legislature screwed up and adopted a system that sends money out of Milwaukee public schools out to other school districts throughout the state. But it's more than just money. I mean, if you want to talk about money, go take a look at Bradley Tech High School. That school is probably one of the most expensive schools on a per square foot basis of any school in the entire country. And it's also one of the most prolific recipients of police services in Milwaukee. It goes way beyond just money. It goes to accountability. It goes to making sure that there is somebody at the top of that school district where the buck stops. Right now, let me ask the question, who runs MPS? The president of the school board will say, I do, and the superintendent will say, well, I do, and members of the school board will say, well, we do, and that's great as long as things are going right. Then they all take credit. Well, as soon as something gets screwed up, it's, well, they did it. And we have to have some type of measure of accountability when it comes to MPS. Otherwise, all the money in the world is going to be useless, because there has to be someone who answers for those expenditures.
All right, thank you. I did shuffle these, as we all saw before, but it kind of brings us on to the next topic. Senator Plale, do you support maintaining and or expanding the Milwaukee Parental Choice Program?
Well, absolutely, with regards to maintaining it. I think that the Milwaukee Parental Choice Program is something that's here. It's here to stay. It was created in the legislature before I became a member of the legislature, and it's hard to determine how I would have voted on something before I was there. But the Supreme Court has ruled that it's here. And we've got to get over this constant battle of pitting us versus them, their kids versus our kids. These are our kids. These are the kids who are going to lead this city long after you and I are all gone. And I find the politics of this to be extremely distasteful. And unfortunately, we have a system in Madison that kind of fosters that us versus them kind of thing. These are our kids. Whether they're in public school, whether they're in private school, whether they're in charter school, these are the kids of our future. And I am so excited that after this last legislative session, and I want to give kudos to my friend Lena Taylor, who's a colleague of mine in the Senate who showed up. Lena and I locked arms on this issue, and we realized that we have got to get beyond this finger pointing. And we've got to get beyond the constant battles that constantly occur. Because who hurts? It's not you and me. It's the kids. Those are the kids who are hurt by this constant battle. So when it comes to expanding, I don't think that's going to be an issue in the next legislative session. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. What I want to do is make sure that the current system that we have is accountable. And that was a major breakthrough this past legislative session, where for the first time since that system was created, we have instituted accountability standards for minimum certification for teachers and minimum classroom time, and making sure that kids pass tests, common tests. We're making progress. To go back to the old days of all this finger pointing and stuff, that doesn't serve any purpose whatsoever. And I know I'm over my time.
Thanks. I think that I don't support the fact that we're pulling money out of our public school system where it's so drastically needed. And I think that when you have a system, if you look at it, it doesn't make that much sense from the outside, where you're going to take the best and the brightest and pull them out of public schools. And on top of that, you're going to pull the parental advocates, the people who make those schools accountable, out. And expect somehow what's left over, the students who are left over, who might not have parents who can show up to teacher-parent conferences, to pull that school ahead. On top of that,
parents that are left in those schools are not accountable?
No.
They say that the best parents and kids are going to vouchers, but they're in my district.
That's not necessarily true.
Excuse me.
No.
Excuse me.
What I'm saying here is that the debate on this has been, thank you, thank you. I would say that the debate on this has been swayed to such a point where, given my stance on this, what happens is that we need to focus back on Milwaukee Public Schools. And that's where the focus needs to be. And for some reason there's a line that says either if you're not supporting Milwaukee Public Schools, or you're not supporting school choice, you're not supporting all of Milwaukee Public Schools. And that's not true. And I think that when you talk about the ugly politics and the ugly standards of this, the news that you're getting, or the push polls that you're getting right now, trying to say things about me that aren't true, or the mailings that you're getting trying to say things about me that aren't true, these things, I don't see how this is funny. These things, the fact that these things are coming in and are paid for by people who want to continue this system without actually having a debate about that system is a huge problem. And the goalposts have been moved on this so many times, it's hard to say what qualifies as success. So I have a very sober look at this because I'm not influenced by the money that's coming in and supporting it.
Supervisor Larson, I gave you a little extra time there. I just want to speak to you on this. I fully respect that many of you people feel passionate about these different issues, but the format of this debate is an exchange between these two candidates for the Senate. It's not an open, shouty match. It's nothing to that sort. So please hold your comments. If you'd like to talk with them after the debate, I'm sure they'd be quite amenable to listening to your concerns, okay?